what is the admissibility of the statement recorded during the summons? It is now a settled law in Ambalal Supreme Court. Statement can be used against the person in any legal proceedings. And that is why, as I shared earlier, there is a caution or warning to the officer, by the officer to the person concerned, that whatever he is going to say may be used against him. But before that statement can be made admissible as an evidence in any proceeding which are later on initiated by the department, it should be established that the statement is should be voluntary. However, in Sampath Kumar case, the Supreme Court said, while following the Ambalal case, that compulsion or threat or extraction or coercion, or the statement has been taken under compulsion or threat or coercion or extraction, it has been extracted, this cannot be presumed. This is a FERA case. It cannot be presumed if the person is actually alleging that his statement was extracted or obtained under duress, under threat or pressure, and it was not voluntary. It was for that person to establish the fact, but it cannot be presumed that all the statements have been undertaken, have been recorded under threat. And in KL Pawani's case, this is one of the landmark decisions. And friends, these are all selected decisions which I have tried to put in this entire presentation. These are all mostly available on ELT and all. Maybe over a period of time, all of you can go through all these decisions. These are masterpieces of the judgments, and these are dealing with the fundamental aspects of this entire gamut of the provisions concerning the taxation laws, whether be it income tax or whether be it indirect taxes. In Pawani's case, the question had arisen whether the statement can be the sole basis of for the conviction. Then it was upheld by the Supreme Court. Yes, conviction can be based merely on the statement, but facts of the case are important. The law over a period of time, today also is there, a demand which is based merely on the confessional statement of the party without corroboration with any credible, positive, valid, and evidences substantiated by any such evidences may not be held to be, may not be upheld in the eyes of law. A mere confessional statement cannot make, if a person agrees, yes, I have suppressed the production and I have clandestinely supplied the goods without issuing the invoices, but on the examination, if it is found that the quantity which is being alleged by the department having been removed clandestinely, considering the production capacity and the overall resources available with the party, he could not have produced such quantity in whatever period of time, then mere confessional statement will not make him liable. So while the statement can be used, statement can be the strong basis for the demand raised by the department, even for the conviction purpose. However, that is not merely sufficient. Again, in which cases the statement will form the core of the department case, or where it has to be always substantiated by further corroboration. These are the questions which would arise every now and then, and it will differ from case to case. Other aspects relating to the recording of the statement, practically, a statement copy will never be given by the department. It will always come along with the show cause notice. Can it be demanded as a right? It can be demanded, you can put, but statement copy, in my experience in all these 30 years, the copy of the statement is never given by the department. Then what are the precautions one should take after recording, after the statement recording is over? These are certain precautions which I will come to in a few slides. Can the recording of the statement extend beyond sunset or be continuously day and night? This is another question. Legally, there is no bar that the statement should be recorded only during the office hours. It can, even given case, it can continue for the day and night. However, in a case relating to the CCE versus state of Bihar, actually it is not CCE, this is income tax case, and where there was a search at the party's place, which continued for non-stop without any break for 36 hours. And not only that, at the end of 36 hours, later on the department even raised the demand of running into some huge amount income tax demand against the party having concealed the income. However, the party approached the National Human Rights Commission, which later on transferred the case to State Human Rights Commission. Human Rights Commission found that there was a torture, there was a pressure, and there was a inhuman treatment, and they had even ordered the penalty and compensation to be paid to the complainant out of the salary of the officers. That order of the commission had been challenged by the obviously by the department before the High Court. High Court, while quashing the penalty part to be recovered from the officers, did after going through the facts of the case, it was established that contrary to the affidavit in reply by the department, there was a continuous, without break, there was a statement recording by the department for 36 hours. And this was found to be High Court by completely, it is touching upon the human personal liberty of the. And with this, the entire those proceedings, particular proceedings, were held to be illegal. So there has to be, and all this rarely happens, but it does not mean it cannot happen. What am I supposed to do at that time? If there is any such, God forbid, but any such things happen, then one has to, without any fear or apprehension, put the objections into the writing immediately to the concerned department. If necessary, one can even think of approaching the police also, that this is an illegal confinement. I would call it as an unlawful. It is nothing less than the arrest or detention. And this can also be challenged via the criminal action also. Next. Whether the presence of the counsel or lawyer during the recording of the statement, whether this is another, issue which has been, there are contradictory judgments on this. The one judgment which has always been holding the field is Pulpandi's case of Supreme Court, where Supreme Court has clearly said that the lawyers or the counsel presence cannot be insisted upon as a matter of right by the party who is actually tendering the evidence before the officer in response to the summons. In KT Advani's case, there are some significant observations which were made. KT Advani is before Pulpandi case. So KT Advani case, I'm not going into the observations made by, the detailed observation made by, but Delhi High Court said there are three aspects of this. One, right of the suspect, that is the person who is tendering the evidence, to insist upon the lawyer or counsel presence. This is one. Two, and why it is to ensure the just and fair procedure, that there is no physical intimidation or mental torture or physical torture. This is second aspect. And third, the lawyers or the counsel's own right or prerogative that as a legal practitioner, I am entitled to be present. These three have been beautifully summed up by the Delhi High Court in KT Advani case. However, due to Pulpandi case, probably this High Court judgment may not be of much help. Very recently, in Jugal Kishore Samra's case, it was a it was a case of the narcotics drugs case, and there again the same law was followed by the Supreme Court. It is not a matter of right, though the lawyer presence was allowed because of the poor health of the accused, but no consultation was allowed by Supreme Court in Jugal Kishore Samra's case, though the lawyer was allowed to be present over there. In the context of GST, the recent judgment of the Madhya Pradesh High Court in AY Trading, in this case also, there was a presence which was insisted upon, and this was disallowed by the this. However, in Vikas Singh case, the presence of the lawyer recently has been allowed, and Vijay Sanjani case also. the presence of the lawyer has been allowed, but within the visible distance only, but not the hearing distance. Lawyer cannot be consulted. Lawyer cannot hear what is going on. He can only watch the proceedings. This was in the Vikas Singh case, but Amit Joshi, again, Delhi High Court has taken a contra view. They have also distinguished Jugal Kishore Samra's case. Amit Joshi is a recent case, 42 GSTL. This Delhi High Court. And Delhi High Court has followed the Pulpandi's case only. Now, interestingly, this Gujarat High Court judgment of Vikas Singh, where the High Court has actually not referred to, sorry, it is a Delhi High Court judgment, I beg your pardon. Delhi High Court in Vikas Singh, it's a single G judgment. They have not actually dealt with their earlier judgment in the Sudhir Kumar Agarwal case. So what is the legal position as of now? There are conflicting judgments on this issue. I would not say that the lawyer's presence cannot be asked for and will not be granted. Pulpandi case clearly says no, but there are some recent judgments of the High Court which have allowed the presence, but within the visible distance and not within the hearing distance. No consultation is allowed. One has to take each case on its merit and make the request if it is considered necessary, if somebody is apprehending some physical or mental torture or some sort of a threat or pressure. It can be asked for. Retraction of the statement. Can the statement be retracted, and what is and whether the statement would remain admissible as evidence if it is retracted? There are a series of judgments on this point. I will just summarize certain principles flowing from all these judgments. A person who is given a particular statement can resile from that statement. He can retract that statement, but it does not mean that the original statement will lose the evidentiary value. Mere retraction. There are many factors which are required to be considered while considering the impact or bindingness of the retracted statement. These are summarized by the Supreme Court in Vinod Solanki's case. In Vinod Solanki case, Supreme Court said, an accused is not expected to prove to the hilt the confession had been obtained from him by any inducement, threat, or promise. I think there is some disturbance. No, okay. So in Supreme Court in Vinod Solanki said that an accused, here accused means the person who is given the statement, he need not prove to the hilt that the confession has been obtained from him under threat or inducement or promise. It is the burden is on the prosecution to prove that the confession is voluntary in nature. Now, the finding, Supreme Court further says, finding as to the voluntary nature of statement or a retracted statement, while deciding this, regard must be had to the time of retraction, nature of retraction, manner in which the retraction is made, and other relevant factors. If the retraction is made after a period of time or at the time of replying to the show cause notice, it would definitely lose any binding. It will have no actually impact by and large. Why any extended time lag between the recording of the original statement and the retraction will only weaken the case of the party. A retraction should be, I would say, immediate, but retraction should be at least at the earliest available opportunity. One cannot make otherwise it will be thrown out as an afterthought. Suppose the person has also simultaneously been arrested. And if he's been arrested, obviously till the time he comes out of the, he's granted the bail, he may not be in a position to make the retraction. So these are, and even while doing so, even while applying for the bail, one has to be very careful while drawing up the bail application also. So therefore, retraction has to be as early as or immediate as possible. And what is normally every statement will have two parts: inculpatory part and the exculpatory part. Inculpatory part where it is actually binding, it is actually against, it is incriminating the party, and exculpatory which is actually not actually in the nature of incriminating the party. Now, what I am actually retracting, that is also important. On what basis I am retracting, which fact I am retracting, why I am retracting. The retraction cannot be superficial or mechanical. It has to be with a basis. And it will depend upon the effects of the each case. But it should never be delayed. Now here, one practical aspect which should be kept in mind, and this is something normally nobody does that. All of you can keep this in mind. Since the statement copy is not given, therefore, once the person has given the statement and he leaves the office of the officer, he should simply cool himself, sit down, and peacefully write down everything which he has said. He need not remember the question, he need not remember the sequence, but he must write down everything that whatever he can remember, and immediately that should be put up before his legal advisor or the tax advisor, whoever he may be. He should immediately bring it to the notice. Okay, this is what I have stated before the officer today, based on which your advisor will be able to take a call. Okay, this part of the statement is damaging, which may not be even correct also, but it has been extracted from him, and therefore immediate to that part the retraction can go. This is extremely important. Every person who is given the statement, once at the first available opportunity, once he is comfortable, he should write down and mail it to his tax advisor or legal advisor. As I said, a copy of the statement will never be given. It will not be allowed to be taken also. It will not be allowed to be recorded also. Next. Next again. Statement of the co-accused. Can the charges or the allegations of the contravention of the provisions of law be stuck against the party taxpayer on the basis of the statement of the co-accused? A simple case of clandestine removal of goods, right, without invoice. Can these charges be based on the buyer who has confessed that he has received the goods without invoice, or the transporter who says that yes, I have actually transported the goods without invoice, or some financier, or like that, or some employees of the company, or the labor of the company? Why? Most of the cases are based on the statement of the laborer only at the show floor. Now, it all depends. It can be, the person can be a broker in the market also. A person can be in any capacity. And therefore, in the case of statement of co-accused, it will all depend upon the law which is laid down in this context are that a statement of co-accused alone cannot form the basis of the prosecution. You can refer to Bombay High Court in Mulchand S. 35 ELT. It cannot be the sole basis. It has to be corroborated by independent, credible, positive, and valid evidences. The another aspect is that a taxpayer against whom the allegations are made, and where for in support of those allegations and the demand raised, when the department has also relied upon the statement of third parties, it is the right of the taxpayer to call for the cross-examination of those third parties whose statement have been used against him. It is his right. He can ask for the cross-examination. As a matter of fact, on behalf of the company, suppose the CFO or CEO or the director has given the statement. Even that director or CFO can also be called for the cross-examination on behalf of the company, because the company is the accused. Demand is against the company. And if the director's statement has been used for the raising the demand against the company, even director can be cross-examined. Cross-examination is again a subject by itself, very important subject. And in the coming days, I'm expecting, because majority of the cases under GST which will now surface will be in the nature of deliberate suppression or evasion type of cases, whether fraud or evasion. And it will be based on the third-party records or third-party statement. And at that stage, the cross-examination, the law relating to cross-examination will become extremely important. Today I'm not going into that. It is in this context that section 136 has to be seen, which says that the binding nature of the statement, it will be binding for the prosecution and can be used by the prosecution if the person who has made the statement is dead. In other words, why this is required? I am calling that person for the cross-examination, but he is already dead. So therefore, still his statement will be binding on me. Similarly, that person cannot be found, or he is not in a position to give evidence, etc. So in all these cases, generally when the cross-examination is asked for, because then only this section will make the sense, section 136. The binding nature of the statement will still remain of that person. Next. Next. Guidelines for the issue of the summons. Board has issued certain guidelines. Now, I will only quickly ask, go through these, but only couple of aspects. Board says that summons are not misused in the field. Summons should be issued as a last resort where SSC are not cooperating. In other words, prior to that issue of the summons, department can issue a letter seeking by a simple communication can also demand the whatever information they are seeking. Then the language of the summons should not be harsh and it should not be threatening. Next. The summons by the superintendent should be issued after obtaining prior written approval of this, the higher officer. If it is not, then it is okay, prior approval. This is all procedural. In all cases where summons are issued, the officer issuing summons should submit a report. This is again internal. Senior management officials such as CEO, CFO, general managers of the large undertaking or public sector undertaking should not generally be issued summons. Now, I'll come to all these points in the next couple of slides. Next. Precautions to be observed. Board has also suggested some precautions. Summons should not be issued for the appearance where it is not justified. If there is an inquiry which is going on, it should not be issued as a matter of routine or mechanically. Next. Normally, summons should not be issued repeatedly, right? I mean, the inquiry and the some persons should be summoned on the minimum number of occasions, and it should be the inquiry should not be prolonged with the number of repeated summons. Respect the time of appearance given in the summons. No person should be made to sit for long hours before his statement is recorded. And now mark the words of the board, except when it has been decided as a matter of strategy. Okay, where a person can be forced to cool his heels in the lobby or the visiting area of the department as a matter of strategy, just to break him mentally. This is what the board says. Preferably, statements should be recorded during office hours. However, this will again depend upon the nature of the inquiry and the exigency of the situation. Next. Now, what happens to if I do not appear or non-adherence to summons? Non-adherence to summons can invite the penal action. So what am I supposed to do? Next. Then here, in Ankit Bhutani case, the party had challenged the summons, but it was found by the Allahabad High Court that party was evading the number of appearances, which he had been summoned on number of appearances, and his whole purpose to avoid the summons and then approach the High Court was to obtain the stay against the arrest. This was obviously the fraud case, and High Court said very clearly. High Court had said very clearly, in the economic fraud cases, to grant the stay against the arrest will not be actually advisable. This is what very clearly High Court has said in this case. So what are the precautions to be exercised by the taxpayers while responding to the summons? Friends, we are not on the legal part of it, Major. We are now on the practical part of it. Whenever any summons is issued, just see summons is issued in whose name. One, whether that person concerned, depending upon the nature of the inquiry and the documents which are asked for, whether that person concerned, who should be the person concerned, whatever, irrespective of the name written. That is one part. Secondly, if the information or the documents or the records which are asked for are voluminous or not immediately ready, and there is a short notice given, one should not ignore it. One should simply ask for the time. Each and every summons should be responded. Need not be appeared. One need not go and appear every time. Chalo bulawa aaya hai, Raja ne bulaya hai. One should not run, but it should always be responded. You can always ask for the time for the preparation and compilation of the details. 3. But as far as possible, whatever details or documents are available, one should immediately give it. There is no point in prolonging this type of unnecessary, the torture type activities. Whatever is ready, and you can always say that the remaining documents are being compiled or information are being compiled by us. And therefore, and it will be submitted in due course of time. Take a reasonable time. Don't ask for 2 months and 3 months extension. Nobody is going to give you that. Take a very rational and reasonable call and ask for the time. Another important point is that no person should appear who is not concerned with the inquiry. What is the nature of the inquiry? 1. Secondly, if the person has gone and appeared, suppose a finance officer of the company has gone, or an accountant of the company who is an authorized signatory of the company has gone, and he is being asked about the production activity or technical question. He may be asked about how the sales are being made, how the prices are being determined. All these aspects, he may be knowing it because of his long association with the company, but it is not his role and responsibility. He should never answer that. He should only say that I'm only looking after the account function and I'm not looking into the production or soft floor activity or such activities. Very politely but firmly one should say that. The department always tries to obtain the confession from the person who is otherwise not concerned with that particular area in the company at all. But he might be knowing it. And department is always very, very alert in seizing such opportunity. So therefore, one should give the name of the officer who is concerned with particular inquiry, but he should never, become over, eager to specify the department. Yes, I know and I will reply. In other words, every person who is giving the statement should stick to his area of the responsibility. He should not venture into any other area, whether he is aware of that area or not. During the summons, the standard practice followed by the department is a Sam Dam Dand Ved. They will try to make the taxpayer understand that आप भर दीजिए, and why to get into litigation, आपका केस नहीं है, एडवांस ऑथोरिटी रूलिंग आ गया है वगैरह वगैरह. They may try to make दाम, आप रेवेन्यू दे दीजिए, आप हमें भी थोड़ा रेवेन्यू दे दीजिए, इट्स अ डिफरेंट मैटर, बट आप रेवेन्यू आप कर दीजिए और इतना भर दीजिए, हम इंक्वायरी को क्लोज कर देंगे. दंड, then they will actually threaten with the dire consequences. Since under GST and for thank God under indirect taxes or income tax, there are no provisions for the hanging the person till death. So फांसी के नीचे जितनी भी सजा हो सकती है वो सारी वो सुना देंगे कि आपको 100% पेनल्टी हो जाएगी, आपको ये हो जाएगा, 5 करोड़ के ऊपर है तो आपको ये हम अरेस्ट कर लेंगे वगैरह. इनडायरेक्ट बराबर अंदर अंदर वो बात करेंगे ऑफिसर क्या करना है, चलो इसको अंदर डाल देते हैं, समथिंग लाइक दैट. दिस आर स्टैंडर्ड लैंग्वेज. एंड वेद नीति, they will say that why are you actually resisting what we are saying, why are you objecting, why are you not confessing, because the other person has already confessed. आपके बायर ने तो बता दिया कि उन्होंने सिर्फ माल तो आया ही नहीं, उनके पास सिर्फ इनवॉइस आया है. ट्रांसपोर्टर ने बता दिया है कि माल कभी मेरे पास से मेरे ये गाड़ी में माल गया ही नहीं है या फिर ये नंबर की मेरा कोई ट्रक ही नहीं है. then why are you actually sticking to your guns, why are you not confessing कि आपने खाली बोगस इनवॉइस इश्यू किए है. So this is the Ved Niti. So one has to be very cautious. The point is that one has to keep quiet, and even if how much provocation is there, their job is to exert the pressure because they are revenue officers. But your job is to sustain that pressure. It is not easy. I know it. But this is because whatever is being done at this stage should not really, ultimately jeopardize or practically kill your defense even before you have built up the defense. So be politely firm and never give half-hearted answers or incomplete figures or information. Say that I will check up the records and let you know. I don't remember. The one word, one syllable also answer can be given yes or no. You need not get into the long explanation. It can be yes or no. But best thing to say, when they are asking for particular information, don't try to rely upon your memory or don't try to actually, satisfy the officer. कि इनको मैं इतना information दे दूं तो वो मेरी जान छोड़ देगा. Never give this type of answer. Okay, I will check the records and I will give the information. And another, one should always avoid answering to the leading question. They are officers. They have to do their job. They will always ask you, are you aware that this particular provision says so? Do you agree with that? Do you agree that there is a non-payment of tax? Are you not liable to pay the tax? These are the leading and suggestive questions. Whether they are binding or not, I am not going into it. But one should be very careful while answering to these questions. And you can refuse to answer such question. Or you can simply say, yes, the law says so. On the non-payment or wrong availment of ITC, whatever may be the case, you can always say that I will check up with my legal advisor. And if it is payable as per law, I will take the call. If it is payable as per law, I will pay. It should be payable as per law. One is not supposed to say that I will pay it. Even if that is said, that is not binding. That's a different matter. And as I said, sometimes they call the more than one people simultaneously in connection with an inquiry. They are being interrogated separately in separate rooms. Or they pit the statement of one person against another person. One should be very careful कि आपके बाजू में रूम में वो बैठा है, उसने तो पूरा अभी सारी बातें बता दी है. अभी आप क्या बोल रहे हो? क्यों रिफ्यूज कर रहे हो? So as I said, it is a bad myth. And another thing is, please do not give any information, whether it is against summons or it is against any communication from the department for any purpose on the verbal instructions. Always insist upon the written communication from the department, calling for the information politely. And if that letter is not coming up, then please give your information in via a covering letter or mail that as verbally instructed by you, we are actually placing the following information and documents on records. And one should always have the extra set, identical set of whatever information at whatever time to whatever officer has been provided. This is very important. One should not start searching for that information or the second state. Okay, वो फाइल में तो पड़ा है ना, अभी एक सेट का जेरोक्स निकाल के दे देते. So these are the things which one has to keep it in mind. Next, here again, I think I will complete this summons part in another 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. This challenge to other legal aspect, challenge to summons. In all these cases, in Larsen and Toubro, the challenge to summons was on the ground where there is a pending inquiry against pending a matter before the advance authority ruling. Madras High Court dismissed the writ by saying that if your matter is pending before advance authority ruling, then please make a request before the authority who is making the inquiry, and they will consider it. Again, in the Dhirendra Singh case also, there was a challenge to the summons on the ground that the people is apprehending the arrest. Yes, High Court dismissed the writ that merely because somebody is apprehending the arrest, that cannot be the ground. With some directions, High Court dismissed. Bombay High Court JSK Marketing, they have made some very significant observations when there has been a challenge to the summons. In Bioveda action, there was a challenge to the summons before the Punjab and Haryana High Court. And Punjab and Haryana High Court asked only one single question. It's a very short order, one-page order. Simple question, whether this summons has been issued as per law or not under Section 70. The answer from the petitioner was yes, and High Court dismissed the writ. Supreme Court, in a very cryptic order, has affirmed the High Court judgment also. So a challenge to summons may be very risky thing and maybe a futile thing. One has to be very, very careful and clear why they are challenging the summons. And Then the next is overlapping on different jurisdiction. In coining case, there are issues that if a person is registered in, say, Maharashtra or Gujarat, and there is, or Guwahati, Assam, and can he be summoned by the other jurisdictional authority? He is only registered, say, in Guwahati, and can the, or he may be, he is stationed in Guwahati, but he is registered in another state. Then whether the DGGI or jurisdictional officer of Guwahati can summon him, where he is registered in, say, Delhi or any other city, any other state. In case of Corning case, there was a challenge. This is a Delhi High Court judgment on this overlapping and different jurisdiction. First, in the Corning case, State Tax Authority had already completed the inquiry. They had issued the show cause notice. Party had also paid, amount as demanded by the show cause notice for the same period, for the same purpose. Again, there has been a central government officer who had initiated the inquiry. On this ground and so many other grounds, the matter was challenged before the Delhi High Court, referring to section 16(6)(2) subsection B, that once we prohibit such type of overlapping exercise of overlapping jurisdiction or the duplication of the inquiry for the same period by the two different set of officers, High Court has granted the stay and matter is listed on 20 July 2021. In Kaushal Mishra's case, it was a case of the party was registered in Chandigarh. DGGI Chandigarh was making some inquiry, and simultaneously DGGI Bhopal also started making the inquiry. And in this case, High Court dismissed the writ petition of the Kaushal Kumar on the ground that both are invested with the powers, and therefore in Kaushal Kumar Mishra, this overlapping or the duplication of the inquiry, that argument was not actually, simultaneous inquiry was not accepted by the High Court. In another case of Himanshu Balram Gupta, he is a sole proprietor of the company registered in Delhi. However, DGGI Ahmedabad Zonal Unit summoned him for in connection with some inquiry. This was challenged on the ground that when my entire business I am registered in Delhi, the DGGI Ahmedabad Gujarat has no jurisdiction. In fact, here the very jurisdiction, the so-called All India jurisdiction of DGGI was also challenged. High Court has admitted and matter is listed. It was last listed on 11 January 2021. What is interesting is the DGGI jurisdiction has been challenged, All India jurisdiction. This is something similar to the Supreme Court recent judgment in the Cannon case in the challenge, jurisdiction of the DRI. In our opinion, DGGI or earlier DGGST or now DGGST, earlier DGCEI, that All India jurisdiction is susceptible to the serious constitutional and legal challenge. We are very clear in our view that DGGI or DGCEI is they pursued All India jurisdiction is not something which is as per law. This can be subject matter of challenge. Next. I think Ragini, shall I stop here? Sir has already joined.
Yes, sir. He was already there. I have asked him to spare 10 minutes for you to complete.
Right. So therefore, he also has to take up very important topic. Since we are contemplating that investigation and search and seizure and other topic, we can take up this topic at that time also. I understand. I would prefer, because I would not like to rush through also. There are certain important aspects of this, but summons also. So I think better I stop here.
So I should discontinue the screen, sir, for now.
Right, for the time being. Just only let me sum up now. I just wanted to ask you.
Yes, sir.
So the point is, friends, so now probably you may have some glimpse of an idea that summons is not an ordinary instrument or document. It is not a formal communication, a piece of paper. Summons is the most important document, issued by the officer because he is making an inquiry and he is considering your presence necessary. The person, taxpayers or any other person's statement is recorded. Based on which there can be a demand which can be slapped against him. Penal provisions can get attracted against other person, like a person who are connected with the offense committed by the taxpayer, transporter, buyer, or anybody else, supplier or anybody. So therefore, one has to be extremely careful while dealing with the summons. This is very important. It should not be taken as a matter of right, and one should never get into delaying tactics while dealing with the summons. It will only jeopardize your case. One should never be afraid of responding to one. Should it is a duty of person to respond to the summons, but the response will depend upon what is being asked for from the summons. One should not be afraid of seeking the adjournment, but one should not delay the matter. And there are certain other aspects which I have already clarified, that what precautions should be taken as far as the retraction is concerned, copy of the statement is concerned, the recording and everything, that part also can be taken care of. So there are some questions I understand, but I will be available, Ragini. So if necessary, I will deal with the questions at the end of the session. Okay, sir. Okay.
Sir, it's
Thank you.
kind of
Thank you
it
very
will
much.